Okay.
Wait, so Paulette, tell me about this bill that they passed. Or they're passing?
No, it
Wow.
hasn't passed.
Which bill
What,
is this?
Which
the
bill?
health care?
No.
Wrong country.
Oh. Which
No,
country are
which,
we
yeah.
in?
Jerusalem. Israel.
Oh.
Whoops.
Oh, these are cocoa pebbles or
What's
something.
I saw it this morning. Oh, he doesn't have it. It's off the screen now.
Do you know the gist of it?
Netanyahu throws strong support, behind Jewish nation state bill.
What is the bill supposed to mean?
I'm going to tell you.
How's it different than anything they've done until today?
Our enemies need to know that the Jewish people have the right to this land, says Prime Minister. Opposition leader dubs bill anti-democratic. Netanyahu gave his backing to the controversial Jewish nation-state bill on
Oh,
Monday.
that might be.
The bill establishes
Molly.
the fact that the state
She's
of
5
Israel is
minutes
the
late.
nation-state
No,
of the
somebody
Jewish
went that
people
way.
in our historic homeland, he said at
To
the
what?
Likud faction meeting. It anchors
Is
in the
somebody
Israeli
supposed to go
law,
that way?
our flag, our anthem, and that Jerusalem is the
He's
eternal
checking on
capital.
his phone.
Opponents of the bill drafted by MK Avi Dichter, Likud, argue that the bill gives primacy to Jewish citizens, but Netanyahu said there is no contradiction at all between this bill and equal rights for all
it is
citizens in
Marlene.
It says
Israel.
Marlene.
So the
Well, the
gist...
bill declares that Israel is the nation state of Jewish people, and it says Hebrew is the language of the state, and Arabic has a special status. It also says that all citizens have a right to maintain their own culture, heritage, and language.
So what's so special about this
I
thing?
don't know. According to Netanyahu, the bill is the cleanest answer to all those who are trying to deny the deep connection between the people of Israel and the land.
Even if Israel declares itself the most radical Jewish state in the world, it's not going to stop anybody else from saying it just because they passed the bill. So what's the point of it?
I don't know.
Israel had a problem for a very long time in that, in its desire to be democratic, it sometimes allows other people to stab a knife in its back. For example, a Knesset member has diplomatic immunity, and the question is how far is their diplomatic immunity go? Can they perform acts of treason against the state of Israel?
No.
And the answer is yes, they can.
What?
Because Israel considers it anti-democratic to force a Knesset member to be loyal to the state of Israel.
That's
And
crazy.
that's
That
a
is
classic case of
absolutely
where
crazy.
Israel is more democratic than it is sane. Some say that it's trying to be so democratic that even democracies don't know what to do with it. And that's why you have an Arab Knesset member who participated in an anti-Israel event where soldiers are shot or hurt, and that Knesset member cannot be tried in court. And that's they've been trying for a long time. Should a Knesset member have to pledge loyalty to the state of Israel? When you're sworn into the American government, you have to declare your loyalty to this government. In Israel, you don't have to. If a Knesset member does not want to pledge loyalty to the state, it doesn't have to. And so they're trying to change that. But I'm assuming this bill has something to do with that. But I don't understand from the language of the bill.
Zionist groups are opposed to it. That's why I thought you Zionist.
Oh, because we talked about Zionism
Last week.
last week, yeah.
I know.
I think Israel has to really figure out what it is and what it's not. And it's been spending a long time. No, are there napkins here? Did I see them? Thank you. Israel doesn't really know what it is, and until it knows what it is, nobody else will know what it is. Thank you so much.
You said last week, and I asked a question, but we never got there.
Oh,
but I'm still
what was the
curious. You said that one should be able to, which I totally agree, one should be able to defend one's opposition. Like to argue for even a viewpoint you're against, because only if you really know your enemy can you
Be for something.
Understand.
Yeah, understand. And I asked you, but we didn't have time.
What was the question?
So how do you defend the Palestinian point of view?
With your brother.
Yeah.
Weren't you doing that with your brother?
Right.
Sure.
Right. So
It's
I
very-
wanted to hear how you argue on their side.
It's a very simple argument. The founders of the current state of Israel didn't come into Israel with a biblical claim to the land. They came into Israel as vowed atheists who didn't believe in the Torah. and they then proceeded to take over a country through military might, which they did, and they were successful with. And there were people that were indigenous to that land before those people got there. I mentioned the ultra-Orthodox groups that were in Israel before the secular Zionists from Poland and Russia poured in. That those people would consider themselves the indigenous Jews to the land of Israel. David Ben-Gurion had nothing indigenous to the land of Israel. He didn't have a grandfather who lived in Israel. He didn't have a father who lived in Israel. He shows up in Israel, and using the existing Jewish establishment's claim to the land, which they didn't want to have anything to do with him, he then proceeded to take over the entire country and subjugate both those ultra-Orthodox Jews and the Arab population to his rule. And whether or not you want to see Israeli history that way, that's what happened there. And
well, some of the land was bought. Some of the land was, I guess, gained after the war.
listen, I'm
People
all for.
abandoned their properties, right?
I'm all-
Palestinians abandoned
They
their
abandoned
properties.
their properties, so and then there was a war where they thought they would win, but they didn't.
The way the world,
I'm sure there was also territories which were outright, annexed.
the way the world works is that when you go to war and you lose, you lost. That's the
That's
way the
right,
world
yes.
works. That's how
Well-
this globe has been working since the
Except
beginning
Israel.
of time. In Israel, it doesn't work that way. But I tell you, that attitude of I came, I fought, I won, tough it up. That attitude is the attitude of an occupier, of a person who comes and colonizes a land.
But they didn't. They were ready.
Colonizes a land.
But they were ready to accept the UN's resolution. They weren't going to war. They were attacked.
I don't-
I'm
that's-
just.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just-
that's not accurate though. We've been massacring Arabs in the land of Israel for a very long time, and Arabs have been massacring Jews in the land of Israel for a very, very long time. And so we're massacring each other way before there was a state of Israel, way before there was even a government of Israel. And the question is always, how do you deal when you come to a land? What is your presence on this land? Am I coming here as indigenous people who came to reclaim my homeland, or am I coming here as people who came to fight for a land that I don't really think is mine? And the way the state of Israel functions, from blockades on Palestinian villages and curfews in Palestinian neighborhoods and checkpoints in Palestinian territories to Israeli territory, I understand why. I understand why they do those things. But that is the attitude of any other occupying force that ever existed on the face of this earth. And if we really believed it was our land, and you can't deny that for 2,000 years the Arabs have been in this land as well, and you believe that we're a Middle Eastern people, which the founders of the State of Israel didn't believe they were. They viewed themselves as a European elite that came to bring socialist values to the Middle East, and they therefore allied themselves with other socialist governments that were operating in the Middle East.
Look at that moonbird.
The State of Israel functions very differently than a Middle Eastern people who came to reclaim their homeland. And I understand that resentment.
See?
I understand if I'm a Palestinian citizen. I don't, the word Palestinian to me is a fabrication. I'm an Arab
Right.
citizen of the State of Israel. And I have to pledge allegiance to, I sing Hatikva. Kol od balevav penima, so long as inside of the heart of a Jew yearns a return to Zion. I'm an Arab. How can you tell me you're a democratic country if I have to sing the song about how a Jew yearns for this country? I yearn for this country too. Oh, but it's our country. We let you live here. Well, that's not the attitude of a person who's democratic. That's an attitude of a person who says, this is my land, tough it up. And whether we like it or not, and whether we can say that Israelis are much more open to the Palestinians than any other Arab country is, that could be. It doesn't solve the problem, though, of we are forcing a people to live under our authority in a way that's not equal to us. In a way
That's what
not.
happens anywhere in the world. When you live in England, you have to sing God Save the Queen. Or absolutely, it doesn't matter who you are or what you are. You live in France, you're going to sing
God
God
Save the Queen is different than God Bless the Catholic Church. I'm not Catholic. She's my queen, but I'm not Catholic. I can be Jewish and have a Queen of England, but how can I be an Arab Muslim and pledge allegiance to the Jewish faith? And we've refused to deal with this issue since 1948. We've always pretended, let's just be democratic, and the seculars, and that's why there's this big fight in Israel about religion versus state, because there's a lot more to do with this country than just, you have Christians in the state of Israel that serve in the Israeli military. And in Israel, when you get sworn to the Israeli military, you get yourself a Tanakh, a Jewish Bible, and a gun, and there's a rabbi who officiates over your ceremony.
It's Jewish.
It's Jewish. And that's okay. If you come in and say, hey guys, we're the most Jewish country in the block, and this is fine, but then don't pretend that you're so democratic. and that you have a separation of church and state, because you don't. And that, I'm putting aside the grievances, 1967 borders and 1905. I don't care about this politics. On a personal level, it's not equal in Israel. It's hard to be a religious Jew in Israel, let alone a Arab. I can only imagine. And do they deserve? I don't know. They're terrorists. It could be fine, but that sentiment is not. It's
If
not
you're
one
a
of
religious Arab Muslim in Israel, that must be very difficult.
and it is
Right? Because
difficult.
every time you walk
Now-
into a mosque, people are mistrusting you.
Now I'll tell you, is it easier to be a religious Muslim Arab under Israeli rule than a religious Jew under Muslim rule? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't help us the situation that we're in right now. And you're in a worse situation today because you're in a situation of people who there's already dead bodies on each side. There's already uncles and dads and brothers and sisters that are dead. And to make peace in that kind of situation it's no longer up to politicians. Politicians could have made peace in the 30s, but in the 2017s when they're I don't know, it's a
The
personal
hearts
war.
of people have to make the peace.
And I don't know. What's the solution? I don't know. But I can tell you that so long that Israel continues functioning like a Western country in the Middle East, it's going to have problems. Israel is not a Western country. And, I mean, it is, and that's the problem. Half the problem is that we don't speak the language of the people that live in the land. Not just languages in Arabic, but languages in the culture of the people who live in that land. You know, when you don't have to agree with me, but I come from an Arab country. Both my grandparents were born Yemen and Morocco. And I heard from them a lot about the Arabs and their relationship with the Arabs and how things work. Do you know that there would have been peace with the Arabs in Israel in 1948 if we didn't offer to come sit at a negotiating table and have conversations? The Western ears don't like to hear this. The language, you know, when Saddam Hussein ruled over Iraq, how many terrorists were there in Iraq?
He kept control.
How many bombs, roadside bombs, were people dying in Iraq?
Nothing.
Nothing. But it was a crazy fascist. That's true. He was a crazy fascist. But he spoke in a language that the Middle Eastern ear understood. He said, "You make problems, I'll massacre the village." And so guess what? Nobody made problems because they don't want a village massacred. But if Saddam Hussein were to say, let's come to some peace summit and have conversations about that, to them that is a sign of weakness. It's kind of like when George Bush, when George Bush went to Iraq, was it Iraq? And he got a shoe thrown at him.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes,
It was a big shanda.
Yeah.
And they hustled him away and the whole. And the Arabs It's okay. He's okay.
No, it almost
Take the
went in his
glass
eye.
sword.
Fork could go right
This
in his
one?
eye.
No, the fork could go right in his
The
eye.
ladies don't like the fork, so what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give
Get
you
a
a straw here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as much fun.
Paulette understands the soul of this
I'll
child.
get him a
He's
spoon.
Devorah's son.
I was thinking.
He's so
Son, whenever it's convenient.
Let's go skydiving.
He would go skydiving for sure. What's it telling you now? Oh,
The shoe.
it's the shoe.
Yeah.
But in the Middle East, when you throw a shoe at somebody, that's the worst insult you can do to a person. The worst thing you can do is throw a shoe at a person. It's almost worse than putting a bullet to their
Somebody
head.
threw a shoe at, who was it? Bush?
Yeah,
That's what we're talking about.
And now the Americans understand, like, if you had the opportunity to get at George Bush, why wouldn't you just shoot him? Because there's so much more of an insult than throwing a shoe at a person. And unless you're a Middle Eastern person, you'll never get it. It's kind of like in Latino culture. You'll take off your slipper and beat your child. Yeah? You ever seen that?
No.
No. You ever see a lady reach for her slipper and go like that? Now, for Americans, a crazy lady, but in a Latino culture, well, you don't want to mess with a mother's slipper. This is a big... we don't get it because we're not part of that culture. But we've come to the Middle East trying to use a language that nobody understands. Nobody understands peace treaties and ceasefires. It doesn't work that way. If Israel was a little stronger, ironically, you'd have peace. It's an interesting way, but Israel doesn't believe in that. So it's not like Israel. If Israel would be stronger, they would just be oppressive. They wouldn't be better. You'd have to have a different kind of Israel who was stronger, and then you'd have peace in the Middle East. And there were pockets in Israeli history. Oh, look what you got for you. There were pockets in Israeli history where we had opportunities for such things. You remember when those girls were murdered on the border of Israel?
Yes.
Remember that in the Bekaa,
Yes.
the Jordanian Valley?
Yes,
There was
Bekaa
a
Valley,
soldier
yeah.
who shot at them.
Yes.
We were at peace with Jordan already. You remember what I'm talking
Yes, I know exactly what
about.
you're
These girls were on a school field trip,
That's right.
and they went to. There's a valley between Israel and Jordan. It's on the Israeli side, and half is on the Jordanian side, and it's called the Jordanian Valley, the Bekaa. And there are parts there that are gorgeous, and there, between Israel and Jordan, there was this kind of like a no man's land. There was a ceasefire area, and people used to go there for trips, and schools would go for history. And there were Jordanian soldiers and Israeli soldiers, and everyone was considered safe in this area. And then one day this field trip went, and this Jordanian soldier from a watchtower opened fire on the girls, and he murdered some 6 girls.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
the king of Jordan got in a private helicopter, and he got permission from the Israeli government to land in each of the Shiva houses. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes, I do.
But he went to each of the girls' Shiva houses and paid a Shiva visit and said, "This is not my, we didn't do this. This is not our." This peace with Jordan happened though when we flexed our muscles with Jordan. And Jordan realized they weren't going to win us, so they might as well join us. But we don't have those muscles to flex, and instead we choose to pretend to be democratic, but oppress the people under our democracy. It doesn't work for us. It doesn't work.
I wonder if, because Palestinian Arabs and Jews have been on that land forever. And like you said, there were always skirmishes. They were killing us, we were killing them.
It's not new.
It's not new. But what is new under the state of Israel is that we live in a world where through the news media, the internet, cameras, and everything else, anything that happens in the glass bowl is immediately sent out to all over the world.
They get up every time.
And so we see that as like turning on our NBC News. Oh, 3 people were killed in San Francisco. But it's always happened. It's never not happened.
There's just more of an awareness. Now
Just
that
more of an
information gets
awareness.
around more
Yeah.
than it used to.
Yeah, it always happened.
And don't get me wrong, these two people are resentful of each other. The Israelis and the Arabs they're listen, you're always gonna have individuals who get along with each other and live with each other and go to school with each other. But as nations, they're not friends. And if you try to get them to be in the same bed with each other, it's not going to work. But I'll tell you, we have those famous Rabbi Musayef. I don't know if you ever heard of Rabbi Musayef. Probably not. Rabbi Musayef was one of the greatest Sephardic rabbis of the last 100 years. He founded a synagogue in Jerusalem called the Musayef Synagogue. And Rabbi Musayef has a beautiful, he's not alive, he's passed away maybe 60 years ago, 50 years ago, I don't know how many years ago. But it's one of the last Sephardic synagogues in Israel that still maintains the old school Sephardic singing, and they have every Friday night after services. You go home, you have your dinner, and you come back at midnight. And from midnight until sunrise, they have Jerusalem's most famous chazanim, the cantors that come there. And they sing all the old tunes to teach the next generation the tunes of the Sephardic community. People do this every single week for their whole life. They come back after dinner, midnight, sunrise, they pray, they have breakfast, they go to sleep, they have their lunch. It's a certain culture that lives that way. Rabbi Musayev's son is now the one who runs that community. He's not a rabbi, but he's the gabbai of the synagogue. And he tells how his grandfather, when under Jordanian rule in Israel, the Jordanians used to come get blessings from Rabbi Musayev. The Jordanian general would come in and ask for a private audience with Rabbi Musayev. He would come in, he would kiss his hand, he would get a blessing, and he would leave. And this happened with Jordanians. His grandfather used to do it with the Turks. The Turkish, the Ottomans used to come by, and before they went to war, they would come bring their soldiers to get blessings from Rabbi Musayev, and then they would go. And he said, don't think that they loved each other. This wasn't a love relationship. This was a respect relationship. And this is very classic of the Middle East. 2 people who respect each other. You have holy people. It's kind of like in Yemen. All the old graves of the Sephardic rabbis in Yemen are all preserved by the Muslims. They go pray there every day. This is their holy sites to the Muslims. Oh, but he was a Rabbi Shabazi. My father's named after him. He was a Yemenite rabbi. He was a Kabbalist. He wasn't a Muslim cleric. Yeah, but he was a holy man. And in that culture, when you have holy men are respected. I might murder you one night if I hate you, but you're respected until that night. And you might not get it, but the stories of Aladdin and Arabian Nights, this is a very real world. This is a real culture that exists in the world. And you say a lack of culture, but it's a culture, it's an attitude, it's a whole society that functions this way. And they would go and they would get blessings, they would leave, and they would go to war. Sometimes they'd kill Jews in those wars. But never without going to get a blessing from the rabbi first. And we don't have that kind of relationship with our neighbors anymore. The last that I know of who had such a relationship was Rabbi Rabbi Yosef. At Rabbi Rabbi Yosef's Shiva, now you have to understand, Rabbi Rabbi Yosef was number 2 on the Hamas hit list. After Prime Minister of Israel, the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel was on the hit list. Why? Rabbi Rabbi Yosef had his own fair share of incitement to hatred against the Muslim populations in Israel. Rabbi Rabbi at the end of every one of his speeches would give a blessing to all the soldiers in Israel, and then afterwards he would curse out all the enemies of Israel by name. Choose his presidents and the prime ministers and the other countries that did it, and he would curse them and amen, and would scream. But by Rabbi Yosef, you always had some Druze priests coming to get blessings, or some Muslim sheikhs that came to get advice, and you always had him traveling through random Muslim villages and meeting with the people and giving them blessings, because that's just part of that Middle Eastern culture. We know who we are, we know who you are, but we still can respect each other. And in fact, Rabbi Yosef had a certain period in his history where his political party, look at that, I didn't know you know how to go that high. His political party was voted for by many, many, many thousands of Arabs. He was considered a Jewish political party that was safe for an Arab to vote for. Now, that doesn't sound right in your right or maybe left-wing Israeli Jewish ears, but that was a situation once on the Jewish bloc. At his funeral, in his Shiva tent, there was an entire group, thousands of Muslims that came to comfort his family. Priests, sheikhs, and imams, and clerics, and all kinds of people. Rabbi Yosef, I told you this before, was very, very good friends with... I'm watching you. Was very good friends with Hosni Mubarak, the president of Egypt.
Oh,
And in fact, when
wow.
this is the first, by the way, so you're watching something now that
Yes.
has not happened yet before.
He's standing.
Let's hold you on that.
He's on his knees.
So,
He's on his knees.
Oops.
No, he was on his
He was
knees.
on his
Oh, he was on his
Abba's
feet.
afraid of heights. Abba's afraid of heights. Mubarak was the general of the Egyptian army when Rabbi Yosef was the chief rabbi of Egypt. And if you know, Rabbi Yosef actually left his job as chief rabbi of Egypt because the Jewish community tried to murder him. He had sold that a certain shochet's meat was not kosher. And that shochet in the middle of the night tried to cut off Rabbi Yosef's head.
Oh, wow.
And he ran back to Israel for his life. He couldn't stay there anymore.
Nice guy.
Nice guy, sure. That's why because he was upset. How could you say my meat's not kosher? So he tried to kill the chief rabbi instead. And he came back to Israel. But the one that helped him a lot when he was in Egypt was this general. Rabbi Yosef had helped him out. He helped him. And then there were times where Israel had to get certain peace treaties. Certain things had to happen with Egypt. They were not yet in direct communication with Egypt. And you had prime ministers that would come to Rabbi Yosef and say, could you reach out to your friend Mubarak and work out some kind of temporary ceasefire, some kind of... when the Jewish community in Egypt, this was before we had peace with Egypt, this is before. The Jewish community in Egypt, they had an old cemetery that was going to be bulldozed down because the Egyptians wanted to build a highway there, a parking lot, or something like that. Something for cars. And they said, there are no more Jews here, so let's mow it down. And there was a little bit of a Jewish community still left in Egypt, and they didn't know what to do. They reached out to Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef, together with one of his ministers, flew down to Egypt. It was still enemy territory. He was the chief rabbi of the Zionist state, and he went and had a meeting with President Mubarak and said, "Listen, I know that you don't think Jews care, and they're not here anymore, and they left your country." He said, "But what about the souls? You don't know how Islam believes in the afterlife, and how we both believe in the same concept of souls that exist and graves that are holy?" And he spoke to him on Muslim terms, with the Islamic faith. And he said, "You can't do that according to your own faith." And he agreed, and they moved the freeway over a few meters to not go through a Jewish cemetery. That kind of relationship. This is the same man who used to curse these governments, could also have that relationship with them. I'm not telling you have to be a dove and believe everyone's going to live in peace, but you have to know how to speak like a Middle Easterner when you're living in the Middle East. And we still speak like American or French or English colonists that are taking over the Middle East. And so long as we act that way, that's the way we're going to be treated. You have to agree with me, but it's my opinion. So the grievances, I get it. We act like occupiers. So that's
Western occupiers.
Western occupiers. And that's so long as we
And
act
the
that way.
left, the American left, agrees with that point of view.
The Israeli left? Well, which American
Well.
left? No, I don't think so. Like, for example, the Israeli left also. Let's give the Arabs their rights. And it comes from a place of patronizing of people. They feel like you think I'm a nobody. I need your support. I need you to go to my riots. In the West, that sounds good. Let's go to human rights parades. Let's do all kinds of act. But in the Middle East, that's very insulting. I don't want you to have to look out for me. I want to be able to stand on my own. Don't make me dependent on you. That kind of, it's very emasculating. This left-wing agenda to the Arab. But the Arabs will take that over the other one, but it doesn't mean that that's what they like.
You know what the Muslims' problem is? They don't have a book written down with instructions that this is their land. I mean,
I don't know whether it would help them now anyway.
yeah, probably too
I
late.
mean,
Too late.
too late. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's settled. It's
I'm very much of the
colonized.
opinion that any citizen has to be loyal to the country they live in. And I believe that if you're not loyal to the country you live in, we can put you on a boat and send you to wherever you need to go, including this country. I don't have
I
time
agree.
for Americans who hate America. Don't stay here, please. It's not. There are enough places in the world where they hate America. Imagine what your life will look like over there. So, but I
Immigrants that
can't
come here.
ask in Israel for a person to pledge allegiance to a state that still won't. Once they pledge allegiance, still won't treat them the way that I think they should be treated. So, of course I believe that Arabs should pledge allegiance to the state of Israel. What, you want me again? I thought you wanted to leave.
But not to the Israeli God.
Israel has to have a much more mature approach as to how they deal with the situation before you can ask someone to pledge allegiance. It doesn't mean that I'm happy with a population that doesn't pledge allegiance, but both sides have to work something out over here before that can happen. I don't know that I could be the Prime Minister of Israel because I don't speak Arabic. How could I be a Prime Minister of people whose language I don't speak?
Does Netanyahu speak Arabic?
Nowadays they make you study like basic Arabic in school. But imagine, you had, when they came to Israel in 1948,
Nobody spoke.
hundreds of thousands of Jews that came from Muslim countries, that spoke the language, that knew that culture, none of them stood a chance to ever be any kind of Israeli leader because of Israel's own racism. But imagine if you would have had, instead of David Ben-Gurion, who spoke Hebrew with a Yiddish accent and some Russian, imagine if you had a prime minister that spoke Arabic. I don't know what that would look like. But I know that it could have been different. It could have been a different relationship with a different kind of person. I don't know if we're there yet, that we can go back to that place, but it could
Did the
have been.
Muslims dislike the British rule before 1948?
Absolutely.
So they had that in agreement with the Jews. No one liked the British rule.
Correct, but once the Jews started fighting the British joined with the Arab population. That was their alliance. In fact, the British stayed on much longer than that. The British stayed on even during the War of Independence to fight the Jews. They didn't officially stay there, but many British officers volunteered themselves to help
for
the
the
Jordanian
Muslims,
Legion
yeah.
fight against the Jewish state. And you should know, even the old guard of the Muslims, they have a very hard time believing in a godless Jewish people. And it might sound funny, but they understand a lot more the religious population in Israel than they do the secular population in Israel. Because your Muslim population is very religious. It's very devout, and they don't understand people who throw God to the wayside. And that's always been a struggle that they've had with the Israelis. So even though you'll have some mostly non-Jewish abiding people who will rail for the Palestinian cause, the Palestinians don't always resonate with that cause. Because it doesn't always come from the same place they would come from. Who knows? Hashem has to make peace on this world, because I don't know how we're going to do it.
I don't think it'll ever be.
No, the question wasn't how to make peace, but just to kind of get it, you know.
I don't know that it's peace, but something on the day-to-day street level has to be different. And I should tell you that on the person-to-person level, there are many opportunities of friendship, and there are such things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, you have to. There's a nationalism that exists with every nation in the world, and at a certain point, that nationalism kicks in, and you have to be aware of it.
So cute.
Okay. We're on page 7.
We are?
We are.
What are we studying?
By the Mishnah? Baba Metzia, 75b. Mishnah and 76b Gemara.
Well, that's page 6. Page 7.
Page 77.
Oh, obtaining chalitza through deception. Okay.
Where do you see that? Oh, up here. I see. Yeah, I see.
Just my last recap, I mentioned that God. The Lubavitcher Rebbe tried very hard to push the Israeli politicians to say that their claim to the land of Israel had nothing to do with their victory in 1948, but everything to do with the fact that God gave them this land to Abraham thousands of years ago. And he said that so long as Israel refuses to work under that premise, they're always going to have problems. Now, it's nice to say my book says that I deserve this land, but there has always been, a continuous Jewish presence in the land of Israel. We may not always have ruled the land of Israel, but we always have had a continuous Jewish presence there. That presence goes back before there were Arabs in the land of Israel, and I got here first, you got here first, is not so much of the difference as much as this claim is beyond any kind of war that we fought or any kind of boundaries that we have. This war is this land is ours for entirely other different purposes, different reasons. It's from a different place. But again, it goes back to matters of faith. I told you when Rav Uziel became the chief rabbi of Israel.
Yes.
You told me that, Bill. Rav Uziel went to every mosque and church in Jerusalem and told them, I'm your chief rabbi also. I represent you. Because there is no representation of there's no chief, bishop. There are, but not government positions and chief Muslim clerics. So I have to represent you. And that attitude of, I may be the one ruling the land, but I must demand representation for the people who live here. Anytime you have a minority that's maligned, that's marginalized, it's just going to end with a disaster. It's never worked that way in history well. And we know that better than other people do. And I'm not saying to be foolish and to say, okay, well, let's all pretend that we're friends and family and work it out. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of stuff that still needs to be worked out. But perhaps the place of faith you still have in Jerusalem every year. The chief imam and the archbishop and the chief rabbis of Jerusalem all get together every single year. And they have meetings and they have discussions about how to improve. It's funny. Normally they rally together around the time of the Pride Parade in Jerusalem. That's normally when they get together to talk about how they could shut it down. And at least they agree on something. So if you could work with that premise that they agree on something, so maybe you could get them to work on other things as well, and then you could leave the politicians out of it. But until then. 7. We're talking about deceiving people who deceive us. What does that mean? I have to be honest and straight with everybody. But if I know that being honest and straight is going to cost me because that person is a crook, so do I have to be honest and straight with them? We mentioned a few examples already where you don't have to. So for example, if there's somebody who you hired to play music at the wedding. Well, let's start with that example again. On page 6. I roll back to your page. If one hires craftsmen, and they deceived one another, they can have nothing but complaints against one another. I hire a band and a singer, and the band and the singer are busy tricking each other. It's not my problem. They tricked each other. It's their problem. I hired you too. You're supposed to work together. That's not my problem. The Mishnah proceeds to discuss workers who renege, is that the way you pronounce it?
Yeah, renege.
On their commitment to work and thereby cause some sort of loss to their employer. If one hired a donkey driver or a wagon driver to deliver planed wood for the construction of a chuppah, or to deliver, that's interesting.
Didn't we talk about this several years ago when we were upstairs?
Yes, that's
We
right.
did.
We did.
We did.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting. So,
We never got past one or two of these sources, so
that's
we're
fine.
back to this idea. So I hired somebody to do something for a wedding, or to deliver flutes for a bride to be played at the wedding canopy to bring the bride and the groom, or for the dead, to be played at the funeral, to bewail the deceased. Did you know that we used to play music at funerals?
No.
No.
We had professional wailers. There were professional women that you would hire to
Jewish
cry.
people had whalers too?
Sure. You see,
All
the
the way back
Muslims,
when.
the Muslims do this today. They have
Yes.
ladies that they cry. They're not really crying. They know how to fake cry to cause everyone else to cry.
But the
No
Greeks
kidding.
will do it. The Greeks still do it.
Yeah.
They have whalers. Oh, yes. Absolutely they do.
They should hire me. I'm very good at that. I can make a stone cry.
Judaism changes over the thousands of years
Oh,
that it's
so-
been Judaism.
So Paulette
it's
stands
like
up and makes a statement that she doesn't know how deep of a statement that is. We love to coin this word, orthodox, traditional. We've never changed.
Oh.
Nothing is further from the truth. we have changed, and boy, have we changed.
Yeah.
We have changed so many times in so many different places in so many different ways. There are halachot. We are at a shiva house. I don't want to teach you the laws of shiva, but there are some things that a mourner has to sit where in a shiva house.
On a stool,
on a hard bench.
a hard bench with no shoes on, slippers.
So the hard
Just
bench is not
low.
the important part.
No,
It just has to be
it has to be
low.
low.
It can be comfortable. It just
Yeah.
has to be low. I mean, to sit low on the floor,
Uh-huh.
or even on the floor.
I thought it had to be a hard bench.
It doesn't have to be
No.
hard.
Can
Just-
be a cushion.
Just low. It's kind of like on Yom Kippur. You can't wear leather shoes because leather shoes are
In the
comfortable.
shtetl, they only had hard benches, and so in a thousand
I
years
remember my
there,
dad
it's like,
sitting on a hard bench, you know.
And the idea is, when a person comes in and they're sitting on a sofa, that doesn't look like a mourner. When they're sitting on the corner on the floor, they're sitting on a stool. It looks like they're mourning. They don't wear their leather shoes.
No,
Leather shoes are
slippers.
considered a sign of comfort. They're wearing some kind of slippers, or some of them are in socks. Some people even go barefoot.
That's more comfortable than shoes, though.
Then it depends what kind of shoes you wear. We live in a world where the shoes we wear are cosmetic. They're not comfortable. They're not good for us. They
No, it
just
depends
look
on
a
the
certain way.
age.
Yeah, it depends who you are. And
Now it's comfortable.
the other halacha, what else does a mourner have to do?
Has to wear the piece of clothing that's
Okay,
torn.
Okay, no,
Yes,
so they wear the shirt that they tore, correct? They tear their
Yes,
clothing, they
correct.
wear that for the whole shiva. What else?
They don't greet you.
They don't greet a parade, so they don't say shalom.
They don't look in the
Afu,
mirrors?
they say they greet you, but you can't greet them.
Right, then you
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
the mirrors have to be covered?
Okay, covering the mirrors is the custom, right? But what about them? What else do they have to do? They don't
They can't
shower
study Torah, they can't
for.
Yeah,
can't
They
They
don't.
don't cut their hair.
Is
They
that
don't
No
study.
makeup,
They don't. There's no make. There are a lot of things.
But they don't
do.
cut their
Now,
hair.
Correct.
They don't wear fresh.
Now, what else is the most important thing that mourners do?
They don't go to simcha.
And then the 7 days that they're sitting shiva. You've probably never seen it in your whole life. That's
They
why I don't know.
go out.
What is it?
They have to cover their hair with a scarf.
Oh, really?
My grandmother did that.
They wear like like
Like a
Muslims
turban?
wear
Right.
Kafir.
Yeah.
like a kafir. We used to always wear scarves over our shoulders, and when a person's a mourner, they cover their head with it, almost like it droops over their eyes, and they look like a mourner.
Oh,
Men too?
Men. So now I'm talking about women. I'm talking about men.
man.
Oh.
Oh.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen that.
If I would come into a room wearing my kafia, you would think I'm not Jewish, right?
Yes.
But that's a halacha that's as old as the Mishnah and the Talmud. It's even found in the Torah this way, that the wrap there. It's ituf. It's part of the laws of mourning.
But nobody does it.
We don't do it because nobody does it anymore. That's why we don't do it. The same way, according to halacha, you must hire wailers for a funeral. But we don't because nobody does that anymore. There are many things like this. Like I told you again, the more you dig into your religion, you'll find how much of a Middle Eastern religion it is. And if we looked like Jews from the Middle East, we might have been absorbed differently in the Middle East.
in Babylonian times, you had the amulets and women that specialized in doing all these things to get rid of the curse of Lilith when women were giving birth.
Well, not just in biblical. You know, ladies still do that today.
No kidding.
The Baal Shem Tov's granddaughter,
Yes.
the Baal Shem's daughter herself, she was taught by him to do all these amulets. She was the amulet writer for the Hasidic movement. She was the grandmother
Now you
of
talk to
Rabbi
an
Nachman
average
of Breslov.
San Diego Jewish woman, Orthodox or not, about an amulet, and hello, cuckoo. Oh, that's not a Jewish thing. That must be some new age. Da, da, da.
Well, this is the truth. Our religion changes over time. And I'm not telling you that it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. I'm not stuck on tradition, but stuck on... There were things that were done. One of them was hiring music to be played at a funeral, sad music. Like you have at non-Jewish funerals. They play the bagpipe, right?
Yes.
Military funerals.
Yes.
The sort of songs they play
Or
at
the
those
trumpet.
funerals.
They played the
Taps.
trumpet.
Yeah.
Play
Taps.
Yeah.
And these are... What?
Bagpipe it's Scottish.
Yeah, but they have many military
police
funerals
use
or
it.
police
The police
funerals. I don't know where
always
exactly.
use them.
They
Yeah.
play them. They even have certain songs they sing.
Or the cemetery, military cemetery they do.
Right. And that's part. This was. Where do you think they got it from? I don't know where we got it from, but this was something that was done at weddings. It was meant to set the mood for a wedding, of a funeral, and also for a wedding. There are many things that are in common, in Judaism between weddings and funerals. Many of the halachot they overlap each other. You're not allowed to stop studying Torah, ever. I mean, if you are studying and someone wants to interrupt you, you don't stop unless they call you for two things. One is to escort a bride to her chuppah, or to escort the dead body to its grave. things that are children don't stop studying Torah. They say even if the temple was to be rebuilt in Jerusalem, they needed the children to stop studying and help build the temple. We wouldn't stop them from. So they say, Mashiach, wait a second, I'm still busy. But children interrupt for the burial of a dead body and for the bringing of a bride to her chuppah. So these halachot, it makes sense they're in the same chapter together. Or if one hired workers to remove his flax from its steeping waters in which it is soaked to loosen the fibers. Or hire them to do anything which if not performed would cause a loss. And they reneged on their commitment and refused to work. This happens a lot. Everyone ever remodel your house or build something in your life? Or I was on the airplane to St. Thomas. And the guy sitting next to me, I said, "Oh, where are you from?" "I'm from Pennsylvania." "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to my house in the Virgin Islands." I said, "Why?" He tells me, "Well, he comes in the summer to vacation there." I said, "But it's not vacation time now." He said he hired some workers to do work on his house a year ago. They were supposed to be done 3 months later. And they're still 9 months later, haven't finished anything they were supposed to do. So he said, you have to just come and make sure they finish the job. So he flew, he took off from work. He flew, he's going to spend a month there to make sure they finish their job. And then he could go back to work. And I didn't look like the kind of guy that if he didn't work for a month, something would happen to him. But that's the way workers are. And sometimes you even have those ones that at the end they'll say, I'll only come if you add another, if you,
Pay me more.
that's how that works in so many different places. I was at a wedding where the band was supposed to be there for a certain amount of hours. You pay them per hour. But they had come early to the wedding to set up. And I don't know if whose part was a misunderstanding on.
They wanted to charge you from the...
They wanted to charge for when they got there, an hour and a half before the wedding.
Oh, wow.
And at the end, when the people came to pay, they paid them as the wedding's wrapping up, and they still had another hour left of the wedding. There was going to be dessert. The band started packing up their stuff in the middle of the wedding.
I've never
The
seen
said,
that.
what do you mean? Where are you going?
What?
Never
Then
seen
I said, either you pay us for the next hour and a half, or we're not staying.
Oh, wow.
And they said, well, how much hour? Well, it's overtime. Overtime, we take double.
Oh, what a
And there was a
rip-off.
the in-laws side wanted it to be paid. The other ones didn't want
So
to
they
pay.
didn't
They were
have,
fighting
they
with each
didn't
other.
have a contract in writing.
It seemed like it was some kind of.
Obviously. Yeah.
And this happens.
That does happen.
This happens. So in this kind of world, when that kind of thing happens, what's the law? The law is as follows: a place where there are no other people that the employer can hire at a comparable wage. So if you can hire somebody else at about the same price, hire somebody else. Try to be straight. Get somebody else.
But at the last minute. Like
Now, if you're at the last minute, the
It's
employer
not-
may hire other workers, even at exorbitant wages, to replace the first workers. And the first workers must subsidize these wages. Now, this is in a world where you have a Beit Din that can enforce such a rule. But the halakha would be that if I hired a band for my wedding, and the day, sorry, we're not showing up. What do you mean? We had an agreement. Oh, we're not coming. I could hire another band at the same price. And then I would just pay that band. But even if I couldn't find a band at that price, and I find a band, they tell me, we pay, it's the day of the wedding, to get our act together, we have to fly in our lead singer from Canada, I don't know where, it's going to cost you about 3 times what we normally charge.
Thank you.
We could hire that band,
Speak.
and the first band has to pay for that. And that would be enforced in a court of law. Or, he may trick the workers into working for him. How do you trick them? The Gemara explains. How would he trick them? He must say to them, we agreed that you would work for a sela. A sela is a significant amount of money. Let's give it a number. It's not true, but $1,000. Let's give us a number. Come and I'll pay you $2,000. I'm doubling your wages. Then, after they're finished, he can pay them the originally agreed upon amount of 1 if the employer has no intention nor any obligation to honor his additional commitment.
So he's renegade.
He's lying to them. He hired them. They agreed to come. And then they decided in a way to extort him to not come unless because obviously they'll come if he doubles their wages. So it's not they couldn't come. It's not that their band member was in the hospital or they had to have family emergency. This is their shtick. This is how they make more money. So he can play along with them. And then at the end not pay them. And if they would take him to court, they would lose.
If they were to take him to the Beit Din.
Right.
But if
Yeah,
they
because
took him
that's
to
We're
court,
talking about a
it's
place
different.
in which that's the only court
Yeah,
system.
but that's extortion.
Who extorted from who?
the band extorted from the person that hired him.
Correct. And so we're saying you can counteract their extortion with tricking them.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Now, this went back to our original question of, so do you lie, tell a liar, or are you just as bad of a liar now that you're lying? Meaning, have I stooped down to their level now? We were worried about this.
Basically, I think.
Yeah, we were worried about this. But we were all worried about this until we gave the example of that cab driver. The cab driver who said, let's not give a cab driver. Let's give the example of a thief who breaks into your house. And says, hey, where's the money? Do you have to tell him where all the money is?
No.
No.
No, but you're lying. You give him $500 in cash that you keep under your pillow. Whatever.
We worked hard for that money. It's not.
And now there's more cash. Is there anything else in the house? You have nothing. This is all that I have. You're a liar. Why? You just sunk down to his level by lying. Would we say that? No, you're protecting yourself. He's trying to extort money out of you, and so this band, are they any different, really, on a theoretical level, than the man who broke into your house and stole
No.
money from you?
No.
So why do we look at it differently? Why originally did we feel like, that sounds a little fishy to trick the band into coming and playing more, when by the thief we don't have any of that sentiment?
It just feels bad.
What? I'm trying to figure out why.
Because the thief
Yeah.
is not giving any, they're taking, but they're not giving. Where the band is giving something for the money that they're getting, but when they try to extort more, they shouldn't get that, but for the money that they did get, they're giving music. Does that make
Because
sense?
you say they're providing some kind of service.
Yeah,
Where the thief is not providing any service.
right. Except cleaning the
Take
house.
his picture.
Someone have a camera? They want to snap a picture?
It's on your phone.
Oh, I have a phone. Never mind. One
Yes.
second. No, nobody needs. Abinam. Abinam.
He's not going to fall
He's
back.
standing.
Yeah.
He's standing by himself. Look at that.
Let go, Marlene.
That is adorable.
That is
That's the
really
first
cute.
time. How old is he?
8 months.
Is he holding on to her?
No, he's standing.
He's holding somebody else's hand.
That's the first time he's standing, guys.
He's standing.
Look.
Look, nothing.
Look,
Take
mine no
pictures.
hands. Look, mine no hands.
He's 8 months old. He's going to be walking soon.
Oh, listen. Listen. I think that in certain things in life we're conditioned. We're conditioned to expect that workers will extort us for more money. And so we kind of accept that as part of the fact of life. We're conditioned that when we'll go to the car mechanic, he'll charge us for things. This happened to me. I don't know if I told you this story. My car broke down about a month and a half ago. More, maybe 2 months ago. Right before Pesach. I think around, like right before Pesach time. My car broke down. And it's my parents, they pay the insurance on the car so I could afford to drive it. So they're still helping me out with that car. They gave it to me as a gift when I got married. And it's been around since 1991, so it's been around for a while. The car only has like 150,000 miles on it, but it's been around for a long time. And they insist that whenever I get it fixed, I should first take it to the Lexus dealer. Why? Because the Lexus dealer, he has a reputation to uphold, whatever.
Nonsense.
You know what? I went to the Lexus dealer.
Don't ever take it to
The
the
Lexus dealer, he looks at the car, says, I'm not going to be able to look at it till next week. Why don't you take a loaner car until then? So that's nice. You get a loaner car. Look at that. But everything comes at a cost, right? It's not
Of
free.
course.
At the end of the weekend, he calls me up and says, I have a story to tell you. So
Oh,
what? He
yeah,
says,
yeah.
your car is so broken. He says, I can't even drive it off the lot. I said, but I was driving when I got there, just making funny noise. He says, well, it doesn't drive anymore.
You broke it.
So it didn't drive anymore. So you broke it. He says, no, it just doesn't drive. I said, okay, so what's the... So we did a diagnostic, an official Lexus diagnostic. Repairs at your car are $5,300.
You fixed it at the gas station for 50,
Wait.
right?
$5,300. $5,300 for a car is not even worth $5,300. Listen to what the guy tells me. He tells me, yeah, but where else are you going to get a Lexus for $5,300?
At car,
I tell them, what if I don't
Carfax?
have to? What can you do just to let me drive it off the lot? Let me just minimal fix it. He gave me a whole laundry list of things that'd be wrong with it. He says, let me get back to you on that. He comes out, so I did the math. I could do it for $4,700.
Yeah.
I said, wow, that's so generous of you. So, if you want me also, I can do another part and you can come back another time and
Yeah,
so we'll
yeah,
do it for
yeah.
$4,200. I said, I can't do it. Let me just tow it away from you. So I said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'll tow it to my house. I have to tell him I'm going to tow it to my house. So I figured, listen, I can't lose more than that. So I towed it to the gas station over here in the corner. I told it there. The guy says, okay, let me take a look at it. I said, I have to run diagnostic. The diagnostic will cost you $100. Fine, okay. He gets back to me and says, I can fix your car. It's about $350.
That's it.
I didn't tell him about the first deal. I said, no. Are there any other problems with the car aside from what you found? He says, why do you ask? I said, just tell me, are there any other problems? Like, is there going to be another problem next week you're not telling me about? He said, listen, my job is to make money off of fixing cars. So if there were more problems with this car than I could tell you I needed to fix, I would tell you I need to fix them. It's like, but there are no other problems with the car aside from this little pipe and a piece. So he charged me $350 that included the $100 diagnostic. So it was really a $250 repair.
Mm-hmm.
And my car, Baruch Hashem, is driving. So don't make any einhag on my car right now. Now it's driving, okay? But what does that tell you? This first guy was in broad daylight. It was a highway robbery. It was
Never go. My husband would tell you, never go to a
Dealers
dealer.
do that. I took
Yes.
my Lexus years ago. I was driving. It was on a Saturday before, I went to shul, and the signal lights started going boom, 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 boom. So I thought there was something seriously wrong. I took it to the Lexus dealer. He says, I can't fix it for you today, but it's going to cost you. We're going to have to replace the whole thing at $60. Okay, so then on Monday I took it to my mechanic. He says, oh, the bulb is out. He replaced it for free.
Oh my.
Yes.
That was it. You never take it to a dealer.
Never take your car to a dealer.
but let's say
Unless
this.
it's
So now
under
I'm telling you
warranty.
all these stories, and I'm sure everybody here on the table has a story.
Yes.
Why have you agreed? That is, you've been conditioned already in your head to know that the mechanic is probably going to rip you off somewhere. Meaning, it could be the guy at the gas lation also ripped me off, but it was a less of a rip off than the one at the dealer. That's all.
That's right.
Wow.
You
But-
understand?
I understand
He's
that
actually a very
perfectly.
good guy.
No, sorry, God forbid. I'm not saying that. I'm
Because
very
we don't
grateful.
know how to
I'm-
repair our own cars. You've got to trust
So I'm
somebody.
taking
Exactly.
advantage
Same
of
with
somebody in the
tea.
situation.
Right.
It's kind of like Paulette. You were telling us
Yeah,
about
yeah.
these
$10
Paulette,
luminol thing.
Paulette.
What?
He's got a piece of orange peel.
it's okay.
He'll survive.
Before
He'll
people
survive.
pass away, you said people are already arranging their own funeral.
Oh, yeah.
Paulette was
yeah,
telling us
yeah.
is why.
Oh, my God.
Because it's known already that in the
Right.
funeral industry, and we're talking about Jewish places, guys, not
And
Yeah.
mortuaries.
yeah.
That was the place.
Okay, when you go after a person passed away, they know they're stuck. They need to bury this body as soon as possible.
Correct.
And
They're
they're gonna
emotional.
charge-
They're wrecked. They charge everything in the world that they want to charge, whatever price,
Correct.
and they know they'll get paid.
They don't.
So what some people are doing, plus, they're already arranging this when they're not under any pressure.
That's
There's
right.
no emotions.
Yeah. Yes.
They already prepay for their funeral.
Yes. Correct.
My parents
Richard
did
did
that.
it with his first wife.
But
That's actually very intelligent.
That's what?
Richard
It's very
did it.
intelligent
Yes.
thing to
I
do.
did it. I
Sure.
did it years ago. My husband.
now
and I.
I'll tell you, and so you think listen, everyone has to make money, right? Sure, everybody has to make money. The question is, do you know that somebody's at a vulnerable place and nobody else? Who else? You're not going to go to a car mechanic to bury the grandmother, right? That's not how it works. You have to deal with these people. That's the only choice you have, and they know that, and you know that, and that's when all the problems begin. When I lived in Israel, my cell phone bill, just for calling in Israel and texting, I think it was 50 texts a month, 100 texts a month, was about $200 a month.
Now people do that in a day, the young people.
Yeah, my phone plan, I pay a phone plan in Israel for 2 lines. I pay it every month. Whenever I land in Israel, I have a phone. Unlimited calling, unlimited text messaging, unlimited internet, free calls to US and Canada.
You still have that phone?
And I pay for it every month.
Okay.
And actually, I'm sending in the mail now after class to my brother who's flying to Israel. And I pay $16 a month.
Wow.
I wish I could use that plan here.
Yeah.
You got that
No
in Israel?
kidding.
Yeah, because what somebody did was, there are only 3 cell phone companies in Israel, and they all work together. So somebody passed a law in the Knesset, and they broke the market. They broke the competition. They made competition, and overnight the prices went from $200 a month to $50 a month to $20 a month. And that's the way it works when there's competition. Competition is very healthy for the world. And those guys are still making money. Don't think anybody's crying over it. Just now they can't reach somebody at their vulnerable place.
There is a plan, Walmart, through T-Mobile. I pay, with tax, $32 a month, unlimited everything.
Can you phone anywhere in the world?
Probably U.S. and Canada.
I have a plan that I can phone anywhere in the
you
world.
probably have to call anywhere in the world.
That's
Not
correct.
everyone does.
So and all I pay for it is less than $20 a month. To
So
do
why am I
that.
telling you this?
What?
When people
Yes.
know, when
On
people
top of your regular bill.
Well, the next one is
Absolutely.
very
When
low.
people know that you're stuck, they take advantage of that situation.
Yeah.
And this isn't at a wedding. That band in the middle of the wedding that stops to play. They know that you're going to look like a fool in front of your 300 guests. And
Exactly.
therefore, they take advantage of that situation, and it's already become expected. It's expected that people can do that. And we talked about the funerals. I had a man in my community who recently buried a relative in Israel, and he was in Israel. They already paid a crazy amount of money for the wedding, the funeral. I'll call it wedding. For the funeral over there, and they're walking the body. Now, this is what they do: is they eulogize in a big hall, and they carry the
The body.
coffin from there all the way to the gravesite. It's not like here where they put the coffins there by the grave and they just put in the hole.
Somebody's kind.
And as they're walking, the head of the Chevra Kadisha, the burial society, takes this guy aside. Says, "Hey, let me have a word with you." He said, "Word? It's the funeral procession. They'll wait for us." He stops the funeral procession, takes the guy to his office, pulls out a computer, says, "You see the spot where we got for your relative?" He said, "I have one. It's a much better spot." He says, "You want to take that one?" He says, "What? Is this 16,000 shekels more?" We'll take. We'll just move it over there. He says, "What's better?" He says, "No, this is a better spot." I'm like, "The view's better. What's better over there?" He says, "This is much better than the one we're in right now." So all you have to do is, "How do I pay you?" He said, "Just cash. I'll take care of it." So also, it's not even official. No, we'll move the bodies. Don't worry, it's okay. It's the middle of the funeral procession. This guy's just trying to make a buck of somebody who's in their most vulnerable state.
Yes, it's
You know,
horrible.
when I was in Muncie, I go to Marlene for a minute. When I was in Muncie, New York, now in the summer, when I was in college, I was at shul, and there was a big collection.
Is he thirsty?
No, he's sleepy. He was yawning.
Oh.
There was a big collection. It was in Yiddish. I didn't really understand what happened. I had to ask my wife to translate for me afterwards. In Givat Ze'ev in Jerusalem, where my wife's community is, that's their headquarters. There was a young rabbi who passed away. He had like 13 kids. And he passed away, and his parents also have like 12 kids, a big family, and they were paying off their monthly payments to the burial society for the funeral. I guess they do that in Israel when people can't afford to pay the whole funeral up front. In the interim of a year, the man's father passed away. And the Chevra Kadisha said, "Sorry, we're not going to bury him." So we're not going to bury him. We won't bury him until you finish all the payments for the first one.
What?
He said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Yeah, we can't take that big of a credit out for you. We're not. How do we know we're going to get our money? If you have to pay for 2 funerals, you might stop making your payments." And I think 3 or 4 days, this body just laid in the apartment. They wouldn't come pick it up.
Oh,
Wow.
That's amazing.
I
And
would
one
have
of the-
given him a check and then
So
canceled the
they
check.
went to the Rebbe.
Yeah.
They went to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said he didn't know about it. The Rebbe made in Israel, it's not like a private person you could talk to. This is a big corporation. The Rebbe made a rule that all the synagogues around the world that belong to this community have to fundraise, and everyone, they said, who can donate $1,000? Everyone stood up and everyone donated whoever could. So every synagogue got, let's say, 50. They covered all the funeral costs for both of these people, and they buried them. Can you imagine the agony that family was sitting there
That
in
is
their own apartment?
Wow.
That is
With all those
deplorable.
kids?
That's deplorable.
Yeah.
But there's a world
It's
in which
very
you say,
sick people.
I expect this. I expect that I'm going to be, you have to have extra money. You hire somebody to do a job for you in your house, to paint your house. Why do you always plan to keep aside that extra money around? Because you know it's going to cost you more than what you agreed on. If you agreed with somebody, you go to a restaurant and they agreed to charge you $25 for your food, and they charge you $65, would you pay for it?
No.
So why do you agree to that when you're
I think
painting
you
your
have
house?
to really research who you're hiring.
But I think even if you hire an honest person,
They-
it
yeah.
works like that.
They say
You have a contract.
something came up which was unexpected, we
Yes.
found
No,
some
you
more
get-
mold or
Yes.
there's
What you
always-
do is you get a contract.
In our shul, last year. They make our rent go up every year, like there's an increase, a percentage increase. And they have these CAM fees that are
Yes, I know.
common area maintenance
Yeah.
fees.
Right.
And every year they do this, they charge you an estimated CAM fee and then they
That's right.
reconcile. And it's always for their benefit. They always need more money than what
That's
they need.
always.
Last year, and it was a tight month at Kehillat HaShamayim, they called me up. Our rent is like $1,500. They needed an extra $2,000 reconciliation. And they
Per
needed it
person?
within 3 days,
Per
or else
tenant,
it's a
per tenant.
Per tenant?
Yeah, per tenant for me. So just for me, they needed the extra 2,000. As I told them this year, I said, listen, I'd rather you overcharge me on my estimated fees. Estimate more. Don't give me this low ball estimate. And this year they gave me back $7. But you know, they gave me back $7. I didn't have to pay them some $2,000 fee in a month. I didn't have $2,000. But it seems like there's a whole world out there which is. We've already
That
been
camp fee
conditioned
is
for
a
it.
rip
And so
off.
this, as much as we want to say, this sounds like the Torah is telling me that I can rip people off. And that's not what our rabbis are saying. Our rabbis are saying you live in a world where there's a state of affairs that people are ripping you off.
Absolutely.
And if you walk around your whole life saying, okay, so I'll just pay them, okay, so that might be right for you as a person, but that's perpetuating an injustice in the world. If the band knows that you have the legal right to hire them, they said $2,000 and now they want $3,000, so you tell them, I'll hire you for $5,000, and then you only pay them $2,000. If they know that the wedding, the bride and groom could do such a trick on them, they might be very careful about what they charge. They might think next time before they extort a couple out of their money. And this is trying to solve an injustice. Are you solving the injustice with another injustice? Maybe. But our rabbis feel that might, in some situations, that might be the right way to solve an injustice. Is to tell the crook, I can be a crook too. Don't think that you're the only
Yeah,
one.
but some people could really come after you and harm you.
Oh, so that's a really different situation. Like we mentioned with the thief, it's probably better to just give the thief whatever. Because the moment you start lying and they find something, you want your car or do you want your life? This is always the question.
Right.
Do you want your wallet or do you want your life? This is an important question to always have in mind. We're talking here on a philosophical, theological level. Yes, there are times where you can trick somebody else who's tricking other people, if that's going, in your opinion, to set the record straight. And we're going to walk through some more examples like this, God willing, next week. I wish you had a beautiful day.
Sounds good.